There's another K Mac in the building at Portman Road. Kasey McAteer joins from Leicester, and 100% of the Ipswich Town fan base are fully behind it. Of course they are. Welcome to Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. Welcome to a live reaction special as Kasey McAteer joins the club. Big chunky £12 million fee. Joining me to give their reactions, Seb Brown and Joe Fairs. Happy Friday, guys. Do you remember when Friday used to be out in town? But now we're talking football live on a podcast. That's what it's about. Joe, how you doing? Good week? And give me your immediate reaction to Kasey McAteer.
Yeah, no, I shifted my Friday night around. So I've been down in Felixstowe with my wife for a couple of hours, stopped and had a Patty Max burger where the chef was a loyal Blue Monday listener who said hello to me there. So that is there. So hopefully I'll get a free burger next time I go there now.
What they called?
We'll see. Patty Max down at Beach Street.
Good pizza down there as well.
Yeah, I had a buffalo chicken burger, which was good. But yeah, no, I'm really pleased with the signing. I think it solves a big problem that we got in the squad, which we'll go into. But that right-hand side has been an issue since all of last season with the injuries that we had there. And it feels like now we've got a good, solid, dependable option in there. Yeah, he's not as flashy as Amari Hutchinson, but he is probably what we need in there at the moment. So yeah, all good on that side.
Yep. And also giving up his Friday night, probably out in Chester, maybe Liverpool, having it large, but he's here to talk to you about football transfers. Seb Brown, how are you, Seb? And 24 hours, mate. It's too much, too frequent sitting here talking about football, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. You slagged me off last night for not turning up for the first 3 weeks of the season, and then I do 2 in successive evenings. So there we go. Yeah, no, like Joe, I'm pretty happy with the signing. You know, it solves an issue we've got on the pitch at the moment, and unlike a couple of the recent additions, he's pretty much ready to go straight away. He's been playing so far this season. He's registered in time for the Preston game tomorrow. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be happy about this one. Okay,
well, we are going to dissect this a little bit. I think I alluded to it in the intro. We are conscious, not least within our own Telegram group, that there are some reservations, shall we say, about this one. And we'll kind of break down the things that we think are part of that. But generally, I think the sentiment of the team is that this is a positive one, and always the case of judging a player once they put the Ipswich Town shirt on rather than before. But there are some aspects around this that we'll talk about. But first, let's say hello to some folk. Thank you to Robert, who's joined our top tier membership. Great to have you with us, Robert. And if you want to do likewise, there's a join button on our channel. And Mikey's mate Henry and George did their weekend preview for the Preston game this morning. It's out at lunchtime, and that's an example of the laughs that we're having around on top tier. So come and join ad-free content almost pretty much daily if you get involved in that. And Robert has got involved in that. Thank you to Shivy for joining us. Good signing. Will be a good player. Charlie D. McAteer will be a very useful addition. We will talk about the increasing speculation. We talked about it on pre-match, but we will definitely get Joe's thoughts, at least on Wolfie's future and other links to other players who can possibly play his role. Adrian, another member, under McKenna, he will progress. And Neil quoting me here a little bit from Telegram this morning when everyone was a little bit down on it. We need players. No, not that one. Evening to Neil. Thank you for joining us. Another member, Richard, is here. Sunny Indianapolis. All-star lineup today on Blue Monday. Not for us to say, Richard. Not for us to say. But we try and balance this out, folks. So give us your views. We're not here to tell you what your opinion should be. Hopefully we can help you process it. And lightly, if you've got views and maybe you're on the more disappointed end of the scale, then please let us know. But show you're working at least. Like Lee has got to be honest, disappointed a little at the McAteer signing, especially at the rumoured £12 million fee. Is he such an upgrade on what we have? Bearing in mind we sold Brody for 7.5, and we will talk about the fee, but perhaps the Brody transfer is setting a little bit of a benchmark there for what is reasonable business, but different positions. But thank you, Lee, for giving us your views and for being honest on it. And I think obviously there's some specifics around the fee. I think Charlie D mentioning low yearly installments, and it's about 10.5, isn't it, or 11.5? So it's not quite 12 mil, but we will talk more about that later. Neil mentioning Delap starting for Chelsea. Stay here, though. We'll let you know if anything exciting happens, I'm sure. Stephen, evening to you. Think it's a good signing. Can't say KM can improve young players. And then Mo, now he's a talented lad who he can improve. Exactly right. But yes, we'll talk about it. Evening to Rob, who's also putting in 2 shows in 24 hours. Let's jump into it. I'll do some of the basics and then I'll throw it over to you guys. So we've got McAteer's stats here. So 23 years old, Republic of Ireland international, been at Leicester's academy since the age of 8. Made his Premier League debut subbing on for James Maddison in a win over Newcastle in December 2021. Had a couple of loans for half a season with Forest Green, where he made 9 appearances, and AFC Wimbledon, where he made 18 appearances and scored 1 goal. Enzo Maresca liked him. He started the season for Leicester in 23-24 in their opener against Coventry, scored his first goal as part of a brace, actually, when he won Leicester the game single-handedly away at Rotherham. Made his Republic of Ireland debut against England in the Nations League last September. But overall career record, 71 goals, 8 appearances, plus his 6 international caps. And I guess, Joe, starting with you on this one, I guess, is there enough first team experience, right type of games, cliche, for you with McAteer with that career history?
It's difficult. He's 24 in November, so he's not as young as he probably looks when you look at the stats he's played. But really, he broke into the Leicester team at the start of that 23-24 season under Enzo Maresca. And I think he had an injury in the middle of that season, but generally he had a good season for them there. I think he scored like 7 goals or 6 goals in the league and 7 including 1 in the cups, across the equivalent of about 1490. So about over about 1,000 minutes. So he's got a good goal scoring record, and I think we saw that in the game we played at the end of last season, where he scores a really good goal in that game, cuts inside onto his left foot for another one, hits the post from outside the box, and I think he's a player. It's interesting when Ipswich fans say they're not rated him, where I think that we've played him. He played at the King Power Stadium, played 90 minutes, and in our promotion season, and he really came very close to scoring a couple of times, played well in that game. Then he came on for the last 20 minutes of the Portman Road game last year, just as Calvin Phillips got sent off. And from that point on, Leicester just absolutely steamrolled us for the last 20 minutes, equalising in the 95th minute. And then in the game that we played at the end of last season, he was probably the man of the match in that game. So it seems strange for Ipswich fans to say, don't know what they've seen of him, but he's probably had really good games against Ipswich there. And you sort of wonder how much of other Leicester games would they watch. But I think he's if you look at where we were last week, we had Nathan Broadhead, Jayden Philogene, Jack Clark, who all prefer to play on the left. And we had Chidozie Ogbene on the right, who's on his way back from a very, very long-term injury. And then Wes Burns, who is out with an ACL injury, and we don't know how much longer for, but he's not going to come back and hit the ground running. He's also 30. He's out of contract in the summer. So there probably needs to be an element of long-term planning there. Well, when you look at it now, obviously we all love Broadhead and thought he was a fantastic player, but he hasn't really been in the team for a long while. He's been away from the team, where McAteer's been closer to the Leicester team than Broadhead's been to our team. And we've now got that balance of, rather than having sort of 3 on the left, 1 on the right, who isn't quite fit, we've now got 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and it will allow Ogbene to ease himself back into game action and gives Kasey McAteer a really good chance to tie down that starting spot. And it now leaves us with Jack Clark and Jayden Philogene focusing on that left and having that battle out to see who's the best player. So I think our squad is really, the balance of it especially is really improved with this signing. I think Leicester's squad, who we know they've got points deduction, but we also know parachute teams are always strong in the league. I think their squad is worse for the loss of him. They've got Steffi Mavididi, Fatawu, and the young boy Monga, but they're all 3 very similar players. They are skillful players who like to cut in, beat people, where McAteer is your runner, gets a lot of shots, gets a lot of goals from that position on the outside there. So I think they've lost a different player and we've gained a different player to what we've got. So I think it really helps in that regard. I'm not going to lie, 12 million, I think is a punchy fee. I think that is expensive. I don't think when we saw that we were linked to him the day before by John Percy, I don't think anyone was expecting it to be that high fee. I noticed that in January, Sunderland had put a bid in for him, a loan offer with an obligation on promotion of 10 million quid that Leicester rejected. So I guess that's what his value is. He's 23 or soon to be 24. He's an international. He's got Premier League experience. And not just that, when we talk about the difference between Ipswich and Leicester squad, they're losing a player who is a sort of course, who knows how to run the course of promotion season. They've lost one of those and we've gained one of those in this. So I think it's all positive in that regard. But yeah, I think the fee is big, but there's a premium on that because Leicester are selling a player to Ipswich. We are rivals, and they probably didn't want to send him to us, but they need to sell him. They needed to sell some players somewhere because of their financial situation. So it is one where, it might have cost us a little bit more to get him out, but I think it's worth it because of what it does to us and what it does to them.
Yeah, we'll come back to the fee in a bit. I've got similar transfer deals at that kind of valuation, and I'll list some players at you, and you can kind of try to figure out, foresee whether that value is comparable for McAteer. A couple of points from Stephen here. Seb mentions never really got a run in the Leicester team, which is kind of fair enough, but is defensively solid, unlike most of our wingers. Am I reading too much into the fact that Enzo Maresca quite liked him? And I recall that promotion season, those ding-dong battles we had home and away with Leicester. I felt like we were very similar teams, weren't we? Maresca ball and McKenna ball. Does that bode well for you?
I think so. There's a couple of injuries in there as well. It wasn't like he was dropped and out of form. There were a couple of injuries, I think. And the right wing role in the Kieran McKenna side has always been such a specialist position, hasn't it? You know, Wes Burns absolutely nailed it. We've seen other players come in and struggle in that role a little bit. And it's crucial to the way we play. They tend to stay high and wide. They don't cut in like the left-hand side does. And that creates extra space for players down the left-hand side of the pitch. And it looks to me like he's fulfilled a very similar role in that Leicester lineup. Therefore, in theory, if you factor in the similarities between Maresca ball and McKenna ball and the fact he's basically played that position, he's decent in the pace-wise, getting in behind people. He does track back and does his defensive work. In theory, he should be a ready-made kind of replacement to slot straight into that role where we are kind of struggling a little bit. So yeah, I think there's lots to like about it, and I think that that experience he's got from winning the championship a couple of years ago, 20 odd appearances or so in the Premier League, scored against us, hit the post. Okay, he's not the most creative with his assist numbers, but that right wing role is specialist, and if he can chip in 6 goals in the Leicester promotion campaign, if he can chip in with similar numbers, that's probably what Wes Burns delivered in the championship promotion season, and therefore you'd like to think, yes, he's a bit younger, 4-year contract that he signed, and therefore could be here for the longer term. And yeah, I agree with Joe, the fee is chunky, but we are a parachute payment club. Everyone knows we've got 37.5 million quid burning a hole in our pocket for Amari Hutchinson, 30 million quid, etc., from Liam Delap and all that. So yeah, that comes into play as well. But yeah, I think that the role he's played for Leicester, in theory, makes him a ready-made kind of a player to come straight in and hit the ground running.
Our mates from Beyond the Scoreline show on a Monday have given us some bits and pieces. Before we go too far away from his role, I can put some stuff on the screen, but I need one of you guys to help me out here. We've kind of got pass map, his carries and take-ons, shot map, received passes, defensive actions, and the heat map. And anyone want to kind of draw a conclusion from this? I think as Seb said, Joe, we've got the sense that he's a player that's going to carry the ball and try and beat a man, but you can spring him in behind, perhaps.
Yeah, I think he's someone who receives more passes than they make. He's not someone who's going to drop in and play. He's the one who's going to be waiting for Connor Chaplin to turn that ball around the corner and flying down the wing to get onto it. So it's a similar style to Ogbene, who was bought because he played a similar style to Wes Burns. So it is that profile we're looking for. You see, he played in a few different positions, so it makes some of these sort of touches and heat map things difficult to tell because they weren't all from that right wing position. But yeah, he's a high shot volume player. He's someone that gets into good areas and gets shots away and gets balls in the box. But yeah, his assist numbers aren't high, but I think there's probably an element of that. Enzo Maresca likes his sort of wingers to sort of maybe overplay a little bit at times, but he was very good at getting the ball in good areas. And I think we're probably a lot more direct than an Enzo Maresca side under Kieran McKenna. So you'd hope that would suit him. And he's someone that could score a good chunk of goals in that position, the way he does get into it and the way we should look to dominate games this year.
Yeah. I've also got Oscar's wagon wheel here. Sorry for covering up Joe a little bit. It kind of confirms what we kind of think about taking the ball forward. I'm trying to look ball carrying quite low there. Retention from take-ons quite low. Chance creation a little bit low there, but good numbers on what we got here. Shot quality high, self-created chances look all right. Pass retention decent. Anyone want to draw conclusions from that better than
Yeah,
me.
and shot volume's high as well, isn't it? So takes a decent amount of shots. They tend to be of a high quality, tends to fashion chances for himself, which is encouraging. And yeah, it's the take-ons and the chance creation that are the things that he'll need to work on. But look what McKenna's done with players in the past. I think I saw him referred to being a better version of Caden Jackson earlier in Telegram. Look what McKenna did to Jackson. You know, McKenna, once he gets on the training ground with these players, will identify areas to improve them. So I've got no doubts if you were to put the same graphic up probably in 12 months' time, I would imagine those weak areas may well have improved, because we know McKenna's bread and butter is developing players, coaching and improving them.
Lee says, my Leicester mates have said he's not one for taking players on, which is kind of chiming what we've said. Prefers to cut back with the short pass. Hopefully our style of play will change this. Yeah, the direct.
But I guess Wes Burns isn't someone who was someone out there taking players on individually one-on-one, was he? And he's been the guy who has been the absolute mainstay of Kieran McKenna's system, the guy who has got that role better. And yeah, Caden Jackson gets a mention, but Caden Jackson played that role well for us. He learned how to play that well and gave you a solid performance every week. Yeah, it might have been a 6 out of 10 every week, but that was maybe limited by his capabilities as opposed, but he was never going to chuck in a stinker of a performance because he worked hard, did all the things that you needed to do. And Kasey McAteer is going to be a similar player. Like I read through their forum, and it's difficult because they're in a position where they just, because of what's gone on with the club over the last couple of years, they just hate all their players. So it's you can't gain a huge amount on the actual ability then, because they just are, as a fan base, in a sort of real doom spiral about it. But a lot of the comments were really good character, really good around the dressing room. He's been a good sort of conduit between the players coming from the youth team into the first team. He's sort of really good with those guys. So, and his Town TV interview, obviously they all are sort of polished these days, but he looks like he's going to be a really good pro, and he's been around a top academy, been around, like I say, when he's in the academy during that time, Leicester have won the Premier League, won the FA Cup. He's come through that side of it there. So they've been a real big club over that period. So to survive through that, and I get people's reservations about the fee. I think that's fair to have, but ultimately we're not the ones paying for it, and it shouldn't be something that stops us doing anything else, because we've got the financial headroom to do a huge amount this window if we want to. So I don't think it stops there. It's just, yeah, it's a slightly heavy fee, but I think it's a really, really good fit for what we want. And now it's just a case of what can we add to polish up those positions behind the striker and in the forward role, and because there is more to do there. Like, this isn't it. Well, if it is, it shouldn't be it. We need at least one more in there, and we need at least one more number 9, and we probably need at least one more centre midfielder.
Yeah.
So there's still a bit to do there, isn't there?
Yeah, we'll come back to that. We'll finish with the outstanding transfer discussion points, the rumours that are at least being reported on TWTD, which, as I said last night, the pre-match is now my benchmark rather than what is posted on X. Seb, your thoughts? A couple of bits. I agree with Joe. I watched his Town TV interview and came across really well. I like the fact that he repeated Mark Ashton's wanting to be the best version of himself, which I don't know whether he heard that from Mark Ashton quite recently or whether that was in his own head, but I like that. The other aspect as well that I think bodes well, 6 international caps been around the Republic of Ireland squad, and therefore he'll know Dara O'Shea, Jack Taylor, Sam Smodic, won't he? That must help, amongst others. Rennie Goodmartin too.
Chio Ogbene,
of course. Yeah, exactly.
Taylor.
Yeah. So that must help with getting him up to speed, getting him part of the group quicker too.
Yeah, in both ways, because obviously it'll be an internal reference for McKenna and Ashton and the coaching staff as well, that regards to his character. You know, they'll spend time away with him on international trips. They'll know exactly what he can bring to the table off the field in terms of his contributions, you know, to training sessions, to tactical meetings, all that kind of stuff. So you'd like to think that will go both ways. And yeah, I just think it's a positive moment. We've been bemoaning the lack of signings for the last few weeks. Okay, he's not Amari Hutchinson. I think some people are thinking he's the direct replacement for Hutchinson, and he's not. He's just an option that hopefully will fit that right wing role very good. And you'd like to think that the club's gone out, identified him. We have to put our trust in McKenna, in Ashton, etc. I know there's questions regarding the transfer policy from the last couple of years, but until we see him pull on a red shirt tomorrow or a blue shirt against Derby next week, it's almost impossible to judge him. And I think he will come good. Yeah,
I'm fuming over the choice of a red shirt tomorrow, having stuck my colours to the mast, almost literally, for all of our branding this week, including tonight. Stephen mentioning that they might know George Hurst from time at Leicester. 2. So that's a bonus one. Let's deal with the fee, Seb. Joe has mentioned it a couple of times. You've alluded to it. Let me just chuck some numbers at you in terms of other deals at comparable levels. Joel Pirro, Swansea to Leeds for 10.5. Mark Ashton, Joe, I advised me of before we came on air. Jonathan Codger, 11 million, Bristol City to Aston Villa at the age of 29. That's great business for Bristol City, isn't it? Benekafobe, Wolves to Stoke for 12. Harry Wilson, Liverpool to Fulham for 12. These are a few years ago now. Ross McCormack, Fulham to Villa for 12. Helder Costa signed by Paul Lambert for Wolves from Benfica for 13. It's difficult. I mean, a lot of those players, maybe probably Pirro and Wilson have probably had maybe Helder Costa as well, had good impact. But do we read too much into fees? And is Joe's fact, that Leicester are obviously selling to a promotion rival, a national promotion rival, but there's also the kind of, he's a British Isles, whatever you want to call it, player. There's always a bit of a tax with those kind of youngsters. Give me your take on it. I've given you chucked a few things at you there on the fee. What's your kind of view?
It is chunky. I think it's been a couple of million quid less. What is it? 11.5 rising to 14 with achievable add-ons, they've said, haven't they? So presumably a payment on promotion, maybe a payment on staying up the following season as well, if we can manage to get there. I guess if it's a couple of million quid less, if it's 9 rising to 11 or something, it probably feels a little bit more accurate. A lot of those names you just mentioned, though, you're talking kind of pre-COVID, before everything, suddenly shot up in price and stuff. And yes, as Joe says, we've paid a tax because Leicester have sold to a direct rival. We've probably also overpaid slightly because you've only got, 9-10 days left of the window now, and we need to get people in, and we've had a few deals fall through. So, if it takes an extra 500 grand to close it, you probably just do it to get that person into the building because you are slightly short. It's an area of the pitch we do need to improve upon, given the fitness issues of Ogbene coming back to fitness, Hutchinson moving on, Wes Burns coming back from his ACL. So there might be a factor of it there. And I just think he's 23 years old, isn't he? With Premier League experience, with 6 caps for Ireland, 24 in a couple of months' time. Is 12 million quid that outrageous? If we get promoted and he scores half a dozen goals again and then becomes a bit of a squad player next year in the Premier League, you could probably look to sell him in 3 or 4 years' time, and you probably wouldn't certainly lose too much money. You could see another side coming in for him if he's a regular squad player at a higher end Championship or a lower end Premier League side. You could probably look to shift him and either make a small bit of profit or certainly not lose out on it. So I think, given the market, given the situation that the football transfers tend to find themselves in, I think it's probably about fair for the course, but it feels a couple of million too much. But in the world we're seeing big players move for big fees, I guess that's the world we're in at the moment.
And I guess Aaron's made a point here. Do we think to kind of mitigate a sell-on fee with a higher initial fee? We are a trading club. We have had our hands burnt by the Delap deal. Chelsea, I believe, are a goal down, by the way. So not going well for Liam there. It's an equaliser.
They're now actually winning 2-1.
It was 2-1. It's turned around very quickly, isn't it? As Delap scored in that one, but Aaron's made the point there that, we may have got a little bit of painful history over the summer and negotiating fees to remove the kind of burden of a sell-on, perhaps an aspect there. Another point that Neil's made here that I quite like, this is the squad upgrade from League One to Champ that we never really did. We are 2 years ahead of schedule. We haven't really had the chance to do these upgrades. I know we're feeling a little bit sad at seeing the double promotion team move on, but there is a point where you do need to move on, evolve, and perhaps this is certainly feels part of that, doesn't it? Before we move on too far from the feed, just a final question, Joe. I'm asking you to speculate on this one. I think we kind of know the real answer, but why did Leicester let him go? I guess that's a lot of people who have reacted on socials, I think, have been seeing what Leicester fans have posted, and you're quite right, pinch of salt in certain forums and all that kind of stuff. But it does feel like Leicester fans are very quick to be quite smug about this deal and the outgoing. Why, if he's such a good player, are Leicester letting him leave to come to us?
Well, Leicester are in a poor financial position. They've got themselves in a real muddle over the years, and I think they've sold this window. They've sold Hermanson to West Ham. They've sold Ndidi. They've sold somebody else.
El Khanous is off, isn't he?
El Khanous potentially going. Fataou's potentially going. But for McAteer, he is a academy prospect or academy player, so there's no purchase fee at the start. So this is pure profit for them to put through their book. So it's just a really good sale for them, and they might be able to use that money to rejig elsewhere and use that. They've obviously had to probably offer Jeremy Monger some guaranteed minutes to get him to sign his scholarship at Leicester, because he's still only 16. Is he even 16? He might even he might have even still be 15 or just turned 16, but they've got to keep him coming through because he's a potential world-beating player. So you don't want to stand in his way coming through. So I think there's good reasons for them to sell him, but I think if you look past the headlines of what their fans are saying on some of the forums, there's a bit more considered takes on there. And like I say, I've had a few messages, and it's like he's a really hard-working player. He will run all day. He's a good finisher. But yeah, I think because he's not Steffi Mavididi, who was their main man when he was down here, and they've now got Jeremy Monga coming through, yes, they maybe are losing the value, but what we want him for isn't a tricky winger who's going to come inside and beat everyone. It's somebody who's going to hold its width, who's going to win his battles out there, who's going to be able to get back and help out defensively. And if he gets the ball, he's going to be able to deliver a good cross or a good finish. That's what we want. It's one of those ones. It's not an overly complicated role on the ball, but it's a very complicated role off the ball. It's quite simple once you get the ball to know what to do with it, but it's really, really tough, as many people have found in that role. And like I say, for us, I just don't. We saw Jack Clark out there throughout pre-season, and it didn't really suit him, that role there. He played there against Southampton last week, and I don't think that's the right role for him. Say Wes Burns come back from an ACL, Ogbene. If we rush him much more, he's going to break down again because it's a real tough injury he's coming back from. So I think it does the trick. I think Leicester, I think it's a deal that probably works for everyone. I think we probably looks a bit chunky, but as Seb said, he's in his age 21 season, he's winning promotion, winning the title in the Championship. His age 22 season, he's getting a good amount of Premier League minutes, and now he's going to be probably a starter for a team that's expected to be right up there in the Championship, and he's playing international football. So yeah, no, I think it's probably a deal that suits everybody, and even if it is a little bit too expensive, I think sometimes it's the order of signings that maybe the fans are not frustrated by, but when you see this, you think, well, we still need this, we still need that. Had we signed this Norwegian kid and a striker and a central midfielder, and then we topped up Kasey McAteer 2 days before the window shut, I think it gets a very different reception to how it gets today. And I say fans, we're all fans, we all are irrational at times, but I think that once he gets on the pitch, I think people will see that it improves us, it improves our balance, it allows our left side to really improve, because you've got Philogene and then Clark battling out for one position. They're 2 really good players battling out for one position there. So yeah, really good. But like I say, I'd rather be an Ipswich fan in this deal than a Leicester one.
Yeah, good point, Joe. Good summings up there. Seb, final word from you. Just want to chuck one thought to you and to see what you say about this. Obviously, we've lost Axel Tuanzebe. Harry Clark really struggled and was quite a lot exposed because of the way that our system was with that Ryan supplier. Obviously, we've evolved somewhat, had to evolve in the Premier League, and as Joe said, a little bit more direct than we maybe were a couple of years ago. Is perhaps this? There is a chat about someone who might come in who can play right back, but for now, is perhaps Kasey McAteer a little bit of dealing with the loss of Tuanzebe, perhaps not, and kind of a marauder, and maybe can get back and help out? Or I'm trying to make sense of all those graphics that I put on the screen and bamboozled everyone with, but I wonder whether that's a factor here or not.
Yeah, I think it might well be. If you look at the heat map again, there was quite a after the attacking kind of side. If you look at that patch of yellow, just in the right wing back position, would we call that, in terms of taking a lot of touches of the ball there? So you can clearly see that he is a player that will track back and do the kind of the off-field stuff that maybe isn't natural to someone like a Jack Clark's game. Wes Burns is now the role. Ogbene is still getting up to fitness, obviously. We saw Ben Johnson play there for the vast majority of last season, especially away from home, because he was equally trusted to do some of the tracking back and the defensive duties. And that is a massive part of that role. Joe just mentioned it. The off-ball stuff is probably more important than the on-ball stuff. And looking by that heat map, he is a player that will do that, and therefore he will help out the right back, be it Ben Johnson or Ashley Young, whoever it's going to be. But equally, you've got a player in a league where we are expected to dominate and be on the ball more and have more possession. He's a player that has the pace to very quickly get you from that kind of defensive duty right up the attacking third of the field.
Yeah. And your final word on this one before we move on a little bit?
Yeah, I can't wait to see him tomorrow. I presume he'll be on the bench tomorrow. I'd be surprised if he were to come straight in. But then with Ogbene's fitness, maybe he will get an instant run. I'd be surprised. McKenna doesn't tend to throw signings into the lineup that we discussed last night. It was Kiefer Moore's debut at half time in the Preston game last time out. So he doesn't tend to throw players straight in unless required. If Ogbene is fit, as we discussed last night on pre-match, I think I would probably still be starting him, given the threat that Preston faced down that left-hand side with Thierry Small. And I guess we'll see him in the second half, and hopefully a big good cameo, and he can win over some of the doubters in the fan base.
Hopefully so. Yeah, do the talking on the pitch, as it were. Good stuff. Plenty more time to talk through potential, is it Uruguayan centre-backs and Norwegian wingers? But first, a word from our show partners at Atwells.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwells Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
Thank you to Atwells for their support of the podcast this season. Apart from the excellent pre-match show with Seb and I from 24 hours ago, which is giving you all the info you need about Preston, you can also catch the weekend preview with Henry and George too. A little bit of a different take on that, including where you might find those guys pre-match. There'll be, I think, a blog Sunday morning and the Beyond the Scoreline on Monday if you're joining our top tier membership. Otherwise, like this show, the flagship, the pre-match, everything, the new show. I think Joe and Craig will be back, hopefully with another deal to talk about midweek next week. We haven't had that, hence why we're here tonight. But Joe's back on Sunday along with Dave and Mikey to talk through the game after the fact. So do, subscribe, do give us a like. We always appreciate that. And if you're listening out in the world of podcast land, we appreciate you too. Please give us a 5-star rating in your app of choice. So other couple of bits, guys, I've got for you. We keen to go to the chat if you've got questions for the guys, either about McAteer, about Wolfenden, about Caceres, I'm going with, about Elkan Baggar, who signed a new contract extension today, but also our friend, I need to get my pronunciation right. I properly wrote this down. Sindre Valle-Egle. Joe, you kind of alluded to it earlier, so I'll come back to you on this one. Your sense, and I think the media sense today, is that deal is still very much ongoing. And in that world, this McAteer deal feels like a combination of deals as opposed to the one and only, isn't it? So what's your confidence level on this one?
It's hard to know on this, isn't it? Because it seems like the guy that broke the story has been sort of replying to like one tweet a day from people. And it's like, is a player interested in Ipswich? Yes, of course he is. And then it's, how's it going? And it's like negotiations still ongoing, but it's going well, I think was the last break. And then all of this has happened. So it's a case of, does that change that? But then there was a story released by its EFL analysis website, which I think Dan described that well in the Telegram chat, where if it's a player you don't think you're interested in, it shows that they definitely don't know what they're talking about. But if it's a player you do want your team to sign, it's like confirmation bias there. So it works on that one. But there are quotes there from Graham Bailey, who has a mixed record, I think it's fair to say, on transfers. But it is him quoted in the article saying that the player's been speaking to McKenna, it's progressing well. He's looking forward to work with him, and it's nearly there. I think if it does, I think that's great, because I think he does add maybe that little bit of stardust that it would be nice to have in that league, in this league. And at the moment, you've got your two right-sided options at the moment. You've got your 2 10 options in Chaplin and Smodic. You've got your 2 left-sided options. But that wild card, that guy, a left-footed guy who can play on the wing, can dribble, can shoot, can score, can go from there. So yeah, it would be. I think he'd be a really, really nice one to add. And I think if we don't add him, I think you probably do need to look at someone else, maybe like a Raksaki, who was on loan at Sheffield United last year, who we were interested in him. I think the summer when we signed Amari, but I think Crystal Palace were holding him back, and we ended up going with Amari Hutchinson. And that obviously all worked out fantastically. And Raksaki hasn't really kicked on since then, but I think they are looking to sell him maybe for sort of the range of about 10 million quid this window. So maybe he's one that you look at, or it's a Premier League loan player. I've heard, maybe we've asked about a few of those, but some of those hold on till the end of the window before you work it from there. But I think if you're that's how I think that Agelli looks really good, but he's a 19-year-old, and if you're looking for the here and now, what you're going for, like McAteer is a much safer, better bet for us this season. Yeah, he might not. That this Agelli is, you're talking someone who could be, I think, signed to talk about sort of 16, 17 million quid, and yeah, he might be worth 50 in 2 years' time, and I don't think that path of McAteer probably exists to get up to a sort of a 50, 60 million pound player, but there's also a chance where he just comes in, totally flops, doesn't really do a huge amount, and it's worth 5 million quid in a couple of years. But I don't think, I guess it's high ceilings, low floors, and low ceilings, high floors. And I think we've probably got the right option now with McAteer. But yeah, I think I'd really like to have him in the squad. I think he looks a really good option. And I think if it's not him, it needs to be someone else. And him being 19 really does help with the squad numbers, as I think a couple of people noted.
Yeah. James asked a question, if it's the James Wright that I'm thinking of, do let us know in the chat if you know 7i in real life, if that's who you are. If not, apologies. But kind of linking Joe's thoughts there, Seb, and the sentiment that I think we've already expressed, that there are some gaps or some areas of the pitch where we're a bit light. The question from James is this enough to move the dial? McAteer, this is on views regarding whether this has been a slightly disappointing transfer so far. I'm going to address that question there, and also give your take of how many, and to Joe's point, what calibre they need to be.
Yeah, so this is the 7th signing so far in the window, isn't it? So, yeah, I guess the overall sentiment, we discussed it last night, didn't we, on pre-match in the news section, around the kind of mood around the transfer window, and we kind of worked out that it's very hard to judge until the window's closed, isn't it? We might go and make 3 really big signings in the next 10 days, and we'll all suddenly feel in a great place about it. So it's very hard to kind of lay judgment against the club and the board and stuff until the window is closed. I think he's a positive signing, absolutely. I think he's a decent signing. I think he's going to make a valuable addition to the squad, and it's a better position than we were in 24 hours ago. Obviously, he's not Amari Hutchinson. I still think that young attacking talent. Hopefully, it's going to be Agelli. Are we going with Agelli? I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Egley.
Well, hopefully, Egley is that player, given the some of the stuff we've heard and some of the stuff we've seen about him. And if we suddenly get him, and then he can also play as a 9, can't he? He's kind of viewed as a long-term, perhaps a striker. So maybe between him and Akpom, they can provide a bit of relief to George Hurst. And if we do then get a central midfielder in as well, then we'll all feel in a great place. So it moves the dial slightly more positive, because it's a player that will contribute, but we won't know for another 10 days. If the window closes now and he's the only one in, we'll look back with disappointment, because there are still obvious gaps that need to be filled. But 10 days to go, whether it's going to be 9 days to go, and that's when we can truly judge. And I'm sure Craig and Joe will do one of their... Craig and Joe will do one of their deadline day specials and be able to give a rating out of 10. So far, you'd probably give it a B-, C+, maybe so far for the window.
Score
I would
out of
suggest
10, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, 6.5 maybe out of 10. But it's only going to take one. If Hayden Hackney does end up joining, joining, then suddenly it jumps straight up, doesn't it, to an 8.5. So one transfer could change things dramatically in the next few days.
Ipswich Town, oh boy, that Borough fella is still twiddling his toes.
At the top of the league, though.
He's playing at Borough, though, to be fair to him. And I think they lost Spinazaz, so that doesn't bode well for that one. But if he suddenly decides that the Premier League isn't for him, or the Premier League decides he's not for them, then maybe that deal gets done towards the end of the window as well. But it feels like, to answer Jim's question, thank you, Jim, for joining, more work needed. More questions from our chat. What else have we got? Andrew Galbraith, what signing are y'all most excited about, pending or done? Joe, we'll start with you.
It's difficult. I don't think there's been many. Like, the signings haven't been exciting so far, because your main signing has been a €9 million for a defensive midfielder, hasn't it? And now 12 million quid for a right winger who's not. They're not guys that are going to. Well, hopefully they do a bit, but they're not ones that are going to constantly have you off your seat, are they? It's not like we've gone out and signed a striker to compete with Hurst and really push him, or a number 10 that moves the needle, or a real big end. But I guess having Jens Kajus back is probably a big signing for this season. But the problem is, you get so used to the bigger signings that you forget that we've signed Jens Kajus. We've spent €9 million on a defensive midfielder. We've got, we've now just dropped 12 million quid on a winger. So yeah, Ask me in this time on Monday week, because I think the window shuts at 6, doesn't it, on Monday?
Does it?
6 or
Stupid
7,
time.
yeah.
It's early, yeah. It is earlier than normal, isn't it?
That's ruined our fun of having a 9 p.m. live pod, but we'll react no less. Seb, Ashley Young, can I try Ashley Young in the mix? Some people not
should deliver moments throughout the season as well, shouldn't he? You know, we've got a lot of goals. A lot of goals played last time out in the number 10 position for Borough, so hopefully he's on the bench and will be involved tomorrow and will deliver us some moments. And yeah, it's the goal scorers, it's the ones that are going to beat a man, whip a ball in, or cut inside and score a goal that are going to get you excited and off your seat. And yeah, I think Akbon will come up with some decent moments across the season.
Paul Seb asks when and if they are all fit. We have an awful lot of wide players. Does Wes move on when fit, or will Clark want to hang around as backup to Philogene? And any jiggery pokery needed there, especially if Egley comes in? What's your take?
Well, obviously, Wes Burns is probably going to be out until Christmas time, November time, probably at the earliest, late October maybe. It takes an awful long time to come back from an ACL, and then it also takes an awful long time to get back up to speed, as we're kind of seeing with Chiewo Ogbene. When they're all fit, you've got Ogbene, you've got McAteer, and you've got Burns for that wide right role. As Joe mentioned earlier, Burns is 30, going into the last year of his contract, so he might be one that plays a bit part in the second half of the campaign, and then it's another sad farewell to one of the double promotion kind of heroes. Jack Clark, I think we've sat here so many times and said how much we all want it to work for Jack Clark. I guess he can now fight, as Joe said, he can now fight for his preferred position on the left-hand side with Jaden Philogene. There's 2 players there for that role who, in theory, should absolutely tear it up at this level, given what we've seen what they do in the past. He's not a right winger. He was filling in there in pre-season, wasn't he? Never really looked that comfortable. I didn't see the Southampton game. I didn't see the Birmingham game, but he's not started the season amazingly well, and he's going to have to be patient because we paid, 15 million quid for him. If we could get our money back on him, then potentially maybe we would look to do that. But given the kind of the form he's been in for the last 15, 16 months, I don't think anybody would pay that for him. So he might have to get used to being a finisher, and we know how important those kind of players can be, given what happened a couple of years ago. And Philogene looks to be the one who's got the shirt, and it's up to Clark to keep his head down, impress well in training, and hopefully get a run out. And I just think he's such a confidence player. He just needs one to go in from his trademark Sunderland, cutting on his right foot and shoot. But I just worry that he doesn't necessarily maybe fit the system, but there's a hell of a player in there. And if we can unlock it, then, what firepower for that left-hand channel.
Yeah, big money spent on Philogene, we forget too. So he's going to be the starter. But the starter and finisher model worked for us a couple of years ago. I like Philogene starting and Clark coming off the bench, frankly.
And there was a lot of game time to go round, isn't there, with all the midweek games as well now. It's not the Premier League where you felt like you're never playing.
Yep. Yeah, good point. This is where I need my squad depth image, Joe, that we update every now and then. We'll try and get this together for at least one more podcast before the window slams shut, as someone has corrected me in the chat. Blanco Lost G says McAteer's arrival now brings the squad to 27. We'll trust you on the numbers there. We are likely to sign at least 3 more players, says Blanco Lost G. 4 if Wolfie is allowed to leave. So what 5 players do we move on? I just want to dwell on Wolfenden. So linked with Coventry already, now Watford today. We are still being linked. And Stoke, really? Okay. And we are also being linked with Sebastian Cáceres, which I think we've had a fee supposedly rebuffed, but the conversations continue to get a deal done, and apparently he's keen to join. Give us your stance on the Wolfenden situation, because I think a lot of people are a bit upset about that. Another member of the double promotion team, an excellent centre back at this level as he's proven, and yet it appears to all intents and purposes that we are upgrading, evolving beyond him too. Is that really necessary, Joe?
I don't think it's necessary. No, I think it's. I wouldn't like to say it's a mistake to do it, but I think unless Wolf is really, really certain that he's the one that wants to leave and is the one pushing it, and we sort of have accepted that and decide that, yeah, we can maybe try and find a player to replace you and let you go off and do your thing and pick up a good fee in the process there. But for me, I just wouldn't be countenancing it for many reasons. Sort of the homegrown status, the fact that you need somebody in the squad who's homegrown, and I think it's only him and Cameron Humphreys. Potentially Harry Clark might be. I don't know exactly how the rules work on that. And I don't know, he's just been such a good player for us. And I thought even through when McKenna came in, he was just an absolute Rolls Royce in League One. I thought he was excellent in the Championship promotion season. And I thought when he played in the Premier League last year, I don't think he had a bad game when he played in the Premier League last year. So I can see why. I guess he assumed he signed a new contract in January, so he's got 2 years left on it. I imagine there was an assumption that if we went down, Darragh O'Shea would go and he'd pick the shirt back up, potentially so. And now that hasn't happened, and Darragh O'Shea has signed a 5-year contract, being given the captain's armband. That is a big block on your attempt to force your way into the team. And realistically, if Darragh O'Shea's fit, Luke Wolfenden isn't going to play any games of football in the league this season. Darragh O'Shea's going to be your sort of 46-game player, isn't he? So I could see why Luke Wolfenden is wanting to leave, but I think it's a big move from us to do it. I don't think it's the best move for us to do it, but sometimes you have to do your trading. And when you're looking at this Sebastian Cáceres, who's like 25, I think he's won the Mexican title. He's got 21 caps for Uruguay. It's a World Cup year. I think they're talking about fee of about £7.5 million they want, somewhere in that region. It's a bloody impressive on paper signing. I can't say I've seen any of him, but I think he's sort of just under 6 foot. So there was talk about him maybe playing in the centre-back, right-back role. I haven't seen him, but Kev Ellis, who I'm sure has done excellent blogs, or has got an excellent blog lined up. And the next one, he watched some videos of him early. He said he can see why Kieran McKenna would like that player. It's a very aggressive defender, gets there, but he said he doesn't look like a right-back. He doesn't look like somebody who can play in that hybrid right-back, right centre-back role. So it's one where, yeah, where is the role from here? If you're a 21 cap Uruguay international in the World Cup year, you're not going to come in and replace Darragh O'Shea. Is he going to? Can he play? I think he has played a fair bit on the left. Does he come in and push Jacob Greaves for a role? But I thought Jacob Greaves would start the season well, sort of one marauding run aside. But we'll just see how it goes. But yeah, there's no way Wolfie goes without a replacement coming in. There's just no way you would risk that. And if he goes, I'll be very sad to see him go. I think he's been a sort of great to have an Ipswich boy in the team who's gone through all the successes that we've had over the recent years. He's had an interesting journey at the club from where he's come from. Yeah, it'd be real sad if another guy leaves, and sort of another guy who's been sort of at the heart of everything. But these things happen.
Yep. Seb, anything to add on that?
No, completely agree with Joe. I think it would be, a mistake for the club to let him go unless he really wants to make that move to go and play regular football again. I think he deserves it because, as you guys have both said, excellent at this level a couple of years ago. And yeah, it will be a sad day if he moves on. And if we do spend 7-8 million quid on his replacement, it'll be interesting to see how he fits into the picture, given it's a World Cup year and he will want to obviously come in and play. And I guess you could argue that being a younger player, Uruguayan Seb, as I call him because I won't go for the surname, perhaps he's one of these player trading ones you can get in now and look to move on for 3-4 times the price in a few years' time, and that might suit the transfer strategy moving forward. But for a local boy to go who's been so good for the last 3-4 years, I mean, yeah, it would be a real blow, and hopefully it won't come to that.
Yeah,
and I think this is the problem with one of the problems with PSR, how it is that it really incentivizes selling your sort of academy players, your local kids, which Leicester have done so today. We like be doing it with Wolfenden. I think that's sort of, especially for a club like Ipswich, where most of the fans are local supporters. You want some of you in the team, don't you? You want something that links you back to the area rather than just being sort of a cosmopolitan, sort of 11 guys turning up who've got no connection, nothing to do with Ipswich, just turning up playing and going back to their lives. So you want some of that in there. And I'd say it's a real shame how PSR works in that regard, but you have to sort of play to the rules as they are at the moment.
Elkan Baggar's on a contract extension today, Seb. 22, I think, 23 in October, I believe. What's your speculation on what that contract extension means? And to Blanco Lost G's question before, he's got to be registered, isn't he? So he's surely not going to be at the club, is he? He's going to go out on loan.
No,
isn't he?
I presume he'll go on loan. It's a hell of a statement from the club to give him a new 3-year contract. They triggered the option this summer. I kind of assumed it might be a 1 year with an option. That way, if he goes out and has a decent loan, then we could potentially look to recoup some decent money for him. He's never really got that run with his loan games, has he? I think was Blackpool under Bruce was where he kind of played the most last season, but a couple of disrupted ones at Cheltenham the year before. Was it Gillingham as well a couple of years ago, maybe? So important that he gets the right move and goes in place. But when you see him, when we saw him in pre-season, you forget, how big physically he is, left-footed, so he ticks an awful lot of boxes with regards to kind of what you want your modern-day centre-halves to be. And yeah, it's a real big statement from the side, from the club, to give him that 3-year extension, which shows exactly how highly they do still rate him, even at the age of 22, 23, where in reality he should probably be pushing for a first-team spot. I think he'll go out on loan. One of the guys in the questions asked earlier about who moves on. I think he's one that will get hopefully a decent loan to free up a squad place. And if he can do well, then we get ourselves a player back and we can look to maybe recoup a bigger fee than normal had he signed only a 1-year deal with an option, or he he looks to come back and be involved in the squad, because he's certainly got an awful lot of the attributes to do it. He just needs to go and play 30, 35 games of football this season, doesn't he, to really kind of toughen himself up.
To finish the chat on Blanco Losgy's question, we've got 2 potential players that are not going to be registered there. I guess there's a question mark over Burns, perhaps, too. Is there anyone else that you'd expect? Ali Al-Hamadi, probably.
Connor Townsend obviously won't be registered. And I guess, could you do something with David Button? Could you not register him, and then if you need to, if you get injuries, have him as emergency one and have a 19-year-old as the third choice, maybe, if you need to? I don't know how that would work.
No. Yeah, I think it's probably too early to start worrying about the registration at this stage. I think this is something that when we look at the sort of last couple of days of the window, we'll know more where we are here. But I'd be very, very surprised if the club ends up in a position where we've got senior players that they haven't managed to get out on loan that are just unregistered for the first half of the season. We've never had to do that before. I think the only person that's happened to here was Miles Kenlock back in the sort of Paul Cook era. Yes. So that's the only time that actually happened. So I just don't see that we end up with players in that position where they're fit and able and not able to play.
Yep. Cool. I think we are going to leave it there, folks. Any final thoughts or questions, get them in now. I'm just going to remind you what you can find on Blue Monday over the weekend. As I said before, pre-match show already there for Preston. The weekend preview on Top Tier. We have a blog out on Top Tier 2 on Sunday ahead of the flagship, which is free to access as always. And then Beyond the Scoreline, our tactical, analytical review of the game that's happening at Deep Down on Saturday. Joe is correctly wearing red. We will be back in red on Sunday. Apologies for getting the branding wrong. It's a kit crime if you ask me. But please, before you depart, give us a thumbs up here on YouTube. Do give us a 5-star rating on a podcast app of choice too. And get involved in the Top Tier stuff. We're really proud of that. There's some great to get more contributors involved in that. And ad-free as well. Final thoughts, guys. We've got HCH asking about Ageli. I think we've dealt with that one. It's TBC, but we're excited about it in theory, HCH. So watch this space. But I think we'll call it there. Joe, final say on Kasey McAteer.
Yeah, I guess don't worry about the fee, worry about the player. As fans, I think as a player, I think he's a really good signing and balances the squad up nicely. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him in red tomorrow rather than it should be blue. But yeah, looking forward to seeing him in Ipswich Town. And I think he'll be a really good addition for us.
Yep, Seb.
Yep, solves an issue of the pitch we haven't quite nailed down in the first few weeks and will contribute throughout the season. And likewise, looking forward to him coming off the bench tomorrow during our victory at Deep Down.
There you go. He's done it again, folks. Thank you, everyone, for giving up your Friday night if you watched it live with us and got involved in the chat. Appreciate you if you've also watched it on demand afterwards. Hopefully, we've done our job of providing a little bit of balance, bit of insight, and maybe prompted some thought. But your opinions are your own. Please share them in the comments. Please be respectful, of course, constructive with those feedback. But as always, as I repeat, it's what they do in a blue shirt that counts. So fingers crossed, Kasey McAteer has a very successful and long career at Ipswich Town. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you for the flagship show on Sunday.